Alrighty, yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. DDG94 here, back with another reaction video. Today, we finna react to Remember Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? I think this was the special guest version of Scooby-Doo where they used to have all the special guests. You said like it was like crossover episodes. You used to have like fucking the Harlem Globetrotters, Batman, fucking Johnny Bravo at one point. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. They used to have so many special guests on here. Scooby Doo and Guess Who? Yeah, this was like that crossover show. But anyways, though, without further ado, let's get right into this.
Wait, remember Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? Pulling in from those classic Scooby-Doo feelings, this iteration of Scooby-Doo is focused on bringing in fun cameos to be part of a mystery, as you could have people who are real-world celebrities or musicians or athletes join in like a Weird Al Yankovic or a George Takei, all the way to fictional characters like Batman and Sherlock Holmes. Pretty fun-sounding concept, to be honest. I mean, the Scooby-Doo franchise has never been one to shy away from having celebrities and cameo guest stars before, so why not just fully go into that? Let's embrace the appearance of so many notable and recognizable people and see what happens when you drop them into the world of Scooby-Doo to be directly involved in what's going on. I love Scooby-Doo, and eventually I want to have a full catalog of videos covering every series out there. I'm not gonna lie though, last year I burnt myself out with Scooby-Doo making my watching every Scooby-Doo movie video, but enough time has passed that I am back on the Scooby-Doo bus and I am ready to team up with the gang once more and start solving some mysteries. The first mystery being just what in the heck was Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? Let's find out. It's pretty interesting to see where the Scooby-Doo franchise goes as we get into the 2010 and beyond era for the property. Starting off this era by having a show like Mystery Incorporated that takes the series in a lot more of a serious and dark direction, that also captured who the characters were in a way that fleshes them out more, and became my second favorite version of the franchise right behind a pup named Scooby-Doo. To then getting Be Cool Scooby-Doo, a version of the show that twists things further to be a lot more comedic, where the focus goes full on in that direction, kind of being the opposite of what Mystery Incorporated was. But after that, we move on to Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, a way to bring the series back to looking and initially feeling like Scooby-Doo that wants to pull on something the franchise was known for early on, and that was bringing in current celebrities or famous fictional figures. It's really not much deeper than that to explain what happens on any given episode. You know, the gang here have mysteries to solve like usual, and through some sort of happenstance, a special guest cameo gets introduced and intertwined into the mystery, and boom, there you have your basic premise of an episode of this series. It honestly is a lot more fun than that though, because what the show does absolutely right is make the cameos they choose feel just as silly and goofy as they felt back in the day, and doing so with an actual purpose for the most part. That doesn't mean it also sacrifices the spookier vibes of the mysteries or the entertainment value that comes from trying to figure out who or what is behind them. It's a hard blend to balance here, as some iterations of the franchise tend to sway more so one way than another. But Scooby-Doo and Guess Who embraces what it is by respecting both sides of the Scooby-Doo legacy. Even in saying that, it's really not that deep if it didn't. We're talking about a franchise that reboots itself every handful of years nearly. If you don't like where it's at the moment, give it a few years, the show will come back in another new way. Over the 2 seasons with 52 episodes in total, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who would bring on a roster of fun guest stars, starting the series off with Chris Paul, or CP3 if you will, a basketball player, as they all have to save a charity event from the Swamp Monster, all the way to ending the series with Carol Burnett, a veteran singer, actress, and comedian, as the gang has to navigate being placed within virtual reality versions of famous movies like Casablanca and The Wizard of Oz, to name a couple, while having to deal with the villain of the week messing with the virtual worlds. One episode you may get Wonder Woman, another episode you may get Kenan Thompson, one episode you'll get Bill Nye, yes, the science guy, and Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Bill Nye.
Another, you'll get the actual voice actors of the characters getting to meet themselves as the characters, as they are in a very meta way filming their own show about the 4 of them solving mysteries alongside their own semi-talking dog. To me, that's extremely fun and it works out very well. So how did Scooby-Doo and Guess Who come to be? Well, it was kind of a bit of luck, timing, and a large purchase of Time Warner from AT&T. AT&T. This is Chris Bailey, and at the time, he was working on a movie called Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank, a movie that would eventually release years later in 2022 and would be a bit memed on, but there was a lot of trouble with the production behind the scenes, like when the film had to pause its production entirely. The film itself was an independent film, and when it hit this roadblock of uncertainty for if the production would resume or will the project just be scrapped, Chris wasn't going to just wait around during this time and do nothing. So he picked up the phone and dialed 1-800-SAM Register, aka Cartoon Network's It Guy. From being the producer, executive producer, and even a creator when it comes to the countless programs on the network, all the way to eventually becoming the president of Warner Brothers Animation and Cartoon Network Studios. These two had already had an established relationship before this, going back and forth about various ideas in the past, mainly about something involving superheroes. And since Chris was finally free to work on something, Sam took the opportunity to loop in another person here to get the ball rolling, bringing in Jay Bastian, who was the senior vice president of series for Warner Brothers Animation, and the pieces were all put in place. Jay had Chris begin working on developing exactly what it would be, having Chris go as far as to produce a script to turn in that would hopefully be good to go to continue this forward, but that's when things get a bit shaky.
It's Scooby-Doo, and guess who? Next.
Guess who's back? Scooby-Doo, and guess who?
At this time, AT&T was working on purchasing Time Warner, so when that eventually went through, it shook everything up a bit, and due to this, projects like the one Chris was working on would end up getting axed and not given a full chance to be developed into something. But luckily, Chris's time here with developing something wasn't over. In fact, it was the beginning of something new. Jay and Chris sat down together once more to figure out what can be done now, and that's when Jay brought up the idea of Scooby-Doo to Chris. And while getting the chance to come up with something new in the superhero field is cool, being offered to do something within the world of Scooby-Doo is pretty exciting and an opportunity that you really can't say no to. And while Chris did enjoy Scooby-Doo for a time when he was younger, tuning in on Saturday mornings to see what Scooby and the gang were up to, he eventually moved on from watching it and self-admittingly said he wouldn't call himself a Scooby-Doo guy. So then what can be done here? Can someone who calls themselves not a Scooby-Doo guy be the right fit to make the next iteration of the Scooby-Doo franchise? The answer may just shock you. Or not. He still wanted to go forward with the idea. Chris did enjoy Scooby-Doo. He loved who the characters were and still adored the franchise. He just grew out of watching it every week as a kid while growing up. We all go through this phase with cartoons or any media that was aimed at a younger demographic, but he did now have some sort of idea of where to take this new series. And that's by going back to part of what made Scooby-Doo so special and fun in the first place. Back to a more basic form of Scooby-Doo where you would see celebrity guest stars of the time in episodes of the show, and the core factor of the episode was solving a mystery. It wasn't about heavy lore building, it wasn't about just having comedy bits. It was at its core just simple and pure Scooby-Doo. Chris, in his own words, wanted to milk the cliches of style, harken back to using left to right and right to left animation while having a clear level of depth to the staging of the animation, and of course, having classic things be involved like Scooby and Shaggy's run cycle. You can hear Chris talk about all of this and more about the show in an interview conducted by the channel JB and Millie. You should definitely check it out if you're interested in hearing more from Chris directly. It's a really great interview. Basically, from this point, Jay was on board with the idea, and as it progressed, the guest star concept was headed in the direction of bringing in cameos from other Hanna-Barbera cartoons, and to be fair, we have seen that a bit here and there in other Scooby-Doo media since, but the focus on just these other characters was revamped into bringing in celebrities in general, again thanks to Sam Register. You see, he was trying to come up with something that could involve Steve Urkel, the character from the show Family Matters, played by Jaleel White. Family Matters was one of Chris's favorite shows, and thus the idea of sticking with more human characters for the guest appearances in the show was pushed forward. That didn't mean cartoon cameos couldn't be included, it just meant that they weren't going to be the main focus. They would instead be used sparingly throughout the series to kind of fill in the gaps of episodes that wouldn't feature actual human-based cameos. I love getting to hear the creative process of any production coming together, and to see how this all came about, what it turned into, and how it directly formed into the concept it became is so cool. While not every cartoon character cameo or celebrity cameo came to fruition, the show boasts an incredible roster of people and characters that make each episode unique because of it. Heck, some of the episodes, like I've briefly mentioned, would have multiple cameos. It's just one of those concepts that can never really get old if you think about it. There is an endless abundance of celebrities, fictional characters, and cartoons out there that could work in a Scooby-Doo collab or crossover setting. It will always come down to the premise of the episode though that makes or breaks it. While a cameo can be fun if the story or mystery they are involved in isn't well thought out, or isn't exciting, or even recycled to the point that it just feels like it's been done too many times before, then what's the point? So for what this show is, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who does a really good job at coming up with fun scenarios to put the gang in that can correlate directly with the cameo coming into the episode. One of the iterations of Scooby-Doo that I haven't talked about yet on the channel is the new Scooby-Doo movies, which, funny enough, are not even movies. It's just 2 seasons of a show where the episodes are around 45 minutes long. This is really the best example to look back on when it comes to understanding Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. The new Scooby-Doo movies would feature famous celebrities that were more noteworthy at the time, especially along with fictional and cartoon characters as well. You get your Three Stooges, your Phyllis Diller, your Harlem Globetrotters, your Don Knotts, your Sonny and Cher, your Batman and Robin, so on and so forth. Scooby-Doo and Guess Who uses this base concept to create what it is, because honestly, it feels like it's just the modern version of this older iteration. That's not necessarily a bad thing because, like I said, it's about the story and how effective it all is at coming together to make something that is fun and entertaining. Now, because of how the show would be released, which I will mention more about later, that being on Boomerang's streaming service, to then later being on both Cartoon Network and the Boomerang channel properly, with the back half of its second season dumped onto HBO Max, I wasn't even aware of the show happening as it was happening, and I feel awful about that as someone who calls themselves a fan of the franchise. So in going back to finally watch this series, I did so in a way where I went in pretty much blind as to what guest stars would be appearing and when they would be appearing, letting each title card be a surprise. More often than not were episodes where I was happily surprised to see who would appear and then be further surprised at how fun the episode was or how good the guest star's role and or performance would be. I seriously can't get over the randomness of some of the guest stars. Like, did you expect to be watching Scooby-Doo and then boom, all of a sudden Macklemore is there? Turn on another episode and then Christian Slater shows up. Steve Buscemi? See ya? You know what? I don't want to spoil every one of them if you've never seen it, but the fact that I was constantly surprised from athletes to singers to actors to comedians to scientists, man, it just made it so much more interesting. And that's on top of still getting episodes with Batman or The Flash or, yes, even Steve Urkel. And yes, he did do that.
This guy stinks!
The Joey Chestnut cameo fits in for the fact that Shaggy and Scooby are big eaters themselves, so that just made me nod my head and go, ah, yeah, that makes sense. I know where this one's going. Now, as productions go, some things don't come together, leaving many ideas and guest star appearances scrapped because they didn't work out, or it just didn't work when trying to put it all together. For example, an episode that was trying to bring both the Hanna-Barbera character of Jabberjaw and the competitive swimmer Michael Phelps into a story together was pitched and even presented to Michael Phelps, but because he ended up saying no to the episode idea was left as nothing more than just that. Shown off in the same interview with JB and Millie, we can see artwork, sketches, and concept art that depicts other characters like Frankenstein Jr., Grape Ape, and other various characters from Hanna-Barbera that could have been in the series before the focus was shifted over to have celebrities and human characters take majority of the focus. With the show being 2 seasons long, of course there would have been some cool ideas for a season 3, and maybe some unused ideas or more far out there wants could have been made possible. But for what we did all in all end up getting, I'd say we ended up with a pretty solid list of genuinely interesting guest stars. I really can't say that there were too many episodes that I would consider as bad or that I didn't like, but there were some that I wouldn't be excited to watch again the next time I sit down to watch this series, like Ollie Ollie Income Free with Ricky Gervais as the guest star in the episode, as this episode feels less like it's about the mystery or the gang in general, and instead just relies on Ricky Gervais trying to crack jokes or have his usual Ricky Gervais remarks and retorts. The mystery they needed to solve gets put on the side, or at least feels like it does because of this, making the episode feel lacking in the plot department. Anytime an episode has the focus fall too much into the guest instead of the plot, you can really feel it in the end by it not having given you more context to the mystery or just ending in a less than satisfying way. Luckily, most episodes are not like that and would find a solid balance between the guest and the plot. And if it is going to focus on the guest more so than the plot, there needs to be a good reason why that makes up for it. My personal favorite episode has got to be A Haunt of a Thousand Voices, which is the one where the gang ends up meeting the voice actors behind their characters. Sure, sometimes being too meta can go wrong really fast, but the episode really does a nice job at giving some love to the people behind the microphones bringing these beloved characters to life. Hearing the same voices go back and forth, the respect given to the art of voice acting, and the overall tone the episode brings takes everything that makes you love Scooby-Doo and celebrate celebrates it. The mystery itself here isn't as impressive or interesting as some of the other episodes, but it makes up for the lack of that by having such a fun premise. Being voice actors and obviously already voicing the main cast, they all fit into the episode so well as they give more of the great performances they are all known for. Frank Welker, Matthew Lillard, Kate Micucci, and Grey Delisle Griffin were all a fun treat to see, and it was a great way to celebrate Scooby-Doo and Guess Who's 50th episode. Sure, it could have worked as the series finale if it were to come out just 2 episodes later, but for what it is, all in all, it's a fantastic episode and I love it. Also, the Hex Girls episode, I Put a Hex on You. It's great, and I'm just a big fan of them, for reasons.
Okay.
Just cut to the ad break or something.
Coming up next is some new Scooby-Doo and Guess Who.
Guess who's back? Scooby-Doo and Guess Who?
But what happened to this show? Why did Scooby-Doo and Guess Who not continue beyond 2 seasons? Well, there are a few reasons as to why. I mean, we can look at the number of episodes, that being 52, which is a pretty standard order of episodes for most shows out there that aren't these massive hits and go on for many, many years. And it wasn't cut short and canceled early like some shows because it didn't connect with audiences or the network didn't market it properly. Beyond this, Time Warner has been all over the place when it comes to being purchased and shifted around, and what gets to stay or what gets axed for tax benefits or just canceled outright because new leadership steps in. It's all a big confusing circle of leadership decisions all stemming around money that results in poor choices being made in the benefit of the company. I said that in quotes, by the way, or for the benefit of those at the top of the chain for yearly bonuses. That I didn't say in quotes. Originally, Scooby-Doo and Guess Who premiered on June 27th, 2019 on the Boomerang streaming service, making it already a bit more out of the way to find and watch for a general audience, before making its way to both Cartoon Network and the Boomerang channel, as those are the places it would live until a bit more than partway through the show's 2nd season, where the final batch of 11 episodes would release all at once on HBO Max, or now just known as Max, on October 1st, 2021. It just felt like they were cleaning house, and in a way, they were, because what came next for Scooby-Doo was already right around the corner. As Scooby-Doo and Guess Who went more towards the safer and more recognizable route, the next series would go in the extreme opposite, being made for an adult audience, focusing on the mature rating it received, and premiering only a year and 3 months later. And yes, I am talking about Velma, a show where violence, cursing, and the lack of Scooby-Doo were the main focus, making this iteration feel so distant from what Scooby-Doo was and causing many people online to heavily push back against it and also ask the question, Scooby-Doo, where are you?
Oh, bro.
Now, I am not here today to explore what Velma was all about. Hey, maybe another time if you want to see that. But it was clear that the formula of Scooby-Doo getting rebooted every handful of years in some new way was going to continue, and Scooby-Doo and Guess Who had its time, and the franchise moved on to something new. That's already happened to Velma, by the way, as that series has concluded, and I believe what comes next is a live-action Netflix series from Berlanti Productions, who were responsible for just working with DC and Warner to create the Dead Boy Detectives series. So despite that being canceled after 1 season, maybe they know how to craft some fun mysteries. If anything, one of the writers working on it, Scott Rosenberg, wrote part of the screenplay for Kangaroo Jack, so whatever that means to you, take that as you will. To solve the bonus mystery of why Scooby-Doo and Guess Who was canceled, you can chalk it up to the series just being ordered for 2 seasons, and then the powers that be were already moving on to the next one, which in most cases is the answer for any Scooby-Doo series. As a big fan of Scooby-Doo, I am always down for more iterations of the show, and seeing what the creatives behind each series will do and come up with is a lot of fun. Whether it turns into something I personally enjoy or not is fine, because they will always make another, giving me a new chance to like or personally not care for it. In the case of Scooby-Doo and Guess Who, yeah, I personally really enjoyed the fun throwback that it is. The stories for the most part were a lot of fun, and the guest stars really made each episode exciting to watch. For my viewing of the series, I wanted to watch it without knowing the order of what guest stars were coming, so every title card would be a complete surprise. This made the viewing experience even more fun because it felt like a little mystery of who was going to be involved, and then just taking whoever that was and hoping to enjoy the adventure that was to come. While not every episode turns out to be great or has a guest that gets you extremely excited to watch, I'd say a majority of the episodes really did have that for me. It was cool to see so many interesting, fun, random, and just unique ideas that came from bringing in guests that sometimes you wouldn't expect, like Morgan Freeman showing up out of nowhere, or even Liza Koshy, which I just think is cool because of having that YouTuber pride and seeing someone someone from the internet have not just a small role in such a well-known property, but a whole episode focused on them being the cameo. For whatever you think about that, I just think that's pretty cool in general. Scooby-Doo and Guess Who takes a formula that works from the classic era of the franchise and pumps some new life into it. Honestly, it feels like we ended up getting 2 more seasons of the new Scooby-Doo movies nearly 50 years after they started releasing in the early 1970s, and I just think that's neat. If you never gave Scooby-Doo and Guess Who a chance, or just completely missed it like I did originally because of where it was released and how it was released, then I encourage you to check it out to fill in any Scooby-Doo fix that you are looking for. It has a great blend of the classic and the new to give you something that is both fun and entertaining, at least in my opinion. But now it's time for your opinions on the show to guest star in the comments below. Did you enjoy Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? And if so, which guest star appearance was your favorite? I'm excited to see what you all have to say. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe. More Scooby-Doo content is coming soon, but until then, later.
Alrighty, that's just gonna about do it for this one, man. Remember Scooby-Doo and Guess Who? I never watched this. I thought they was gonna talk about the old one with the Harlem Globetrotters and stuff like that. I thought they were gonna talk about the old one, cause I thought that's what it was. But no, it was called Scooby-Doo and it was called the movies Scooby-Doo movie something. I don't know. But I thought he was going to talk about that one. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember those. Yeah, all those episodes with Batman and Robin, Harlem Globetrotters. They had plenty of people. But yeah, man, that's just going to about do it for this one, man. I will see you all in the next video. Till then, peace out.